Oh, thank you all very much. And thank you online people for sticking with us. I'm thrilled to be here today. And this is actually my first invitation to a college, which is remarkable. I've been the director of alumni relations for the university, as you heard Stella say, for 10 years. And I'm a fellow at a college, so it's not as if I'm not connected to a college. But in terms of coming to a college to describe alumni engagement or sort of embellish the idea of alumni engagement, within the college context, this is the first, and I would say congratulations to St. Anne's. Well done for coming up with this idea. So thank you very much. A couple of things I want to talk about today. One is I want to describe actually the relationship of our office to that of the colleges and the departments. I want to talk a bit about the communities that you all represent and the complicated nature of communities here at Oxford. I want to talk a little bit about the importance of community more than ever. In light of the pandemic, we are certainly seeing that extraordinary desire to engage and to help each other. I also want to talk a little bit about why we should be engaged and how the importance of staying agile within that engagement, because the old version of alumni relations is very different than what we need to be today. We need to stay current and responsive and agile. So I'll talk a little bit about that. And then ultimately talk about what my goals are for the alumni community overall going forward. So just to start with the university and how we relate to colleges, because it was interesting to hear Jay say that there was a sense of why are you even, what is your role? Are you associated with the development office? Are you part of the fundraising operation at the Central University? And I'm delighted to explain that actually we are completely separate from development, unlike in the colleges where the alumni relations and development efforts happen in sort of a coordinated fashion. The Central Development Office at the university primarily raises money from non-alumni, from very high profile, high net worth individuals. And these are transformational gifts that help to propel the university forward. And the university understands and appreciates and respects the relationship that you all have with alumni, and that your relationship is much more of a personal one with alumni. So when it comes to fundraising, we really leave that fundraising bit to the colleges. And there's a very sort of carefully orchestrated relationship when the university might see somebody who is an alumnus of a college or an alumna of the college. There will be a negotiation with the college to discuss, may we contact that person, may we engage them, and vice versa. The same thing with colleges approaching non-alumni for gifts. On the alumni relations side, our office, as I said, very separate from the fundraising operation. Ours is all about creating a relationship that aggregates the benefits and the resources and the power of the university as a whole. So our role is to bring the university, the sum of its parts, all of the many, many permutations of it, to alumni and give people a chance to engage back in with it. So while you're focused specifically on the St. Anne's Society of Alumni, we're looking at 350,000 people around the world and trying to understand them well, trying to understand what sort of floats their boat, if you will, and trying to figure out ways in which we give them access and information that gives them more of an understanding of what's going on at the university. So when we do events, they're the big tent activities that you see. They're the big alumni weekends, whether they're local here in Oxford, Meeting Minds, digital, that was our operation, or whether when we're going out into the international community, we do big events in New York, in Europe, in Asia. And that's, again, bringing the whole university together to describe the ways in which we can be powerful together and the impact that we might have. So that's pretty much the way our office is focused. As I said in the beginning, I do think alumni engagement is very different today than it was before. You know, in the past, it used to be sort of, white tablecloths and popping the corks, and it was simply sort of a social opportunity to engage with people. And there wasn't any really clear goal or outcome that was associated with that. It was all about, let's convene ourselves and talk about how lovely our experience was together, and sort of remember those halcyon days. Today, I'd say alumni relations is a completely different operation, much more strategic. And I see us as a strategic partner of the university and of the colleges and of the departments in bringing people together, convening them in order to do something, in order to impart information, give people an opportunity to get involved, give them actually I hope, a clear call to action, because we're not simply convening for a social event. And I don't think we should be satisfied with that. I don't think that's quite enough. I think we want people to go away from that social event knowing more, being more empowered, having a better sense of their role in the institution. So we're really moving away. A term I really hate is friend raising. We talk about the distinction between fundraising and friend raising. Well, that's ridiculous. I mean, first of all, I think it minimizes the importance of what we do in our world. And I think it also, we are not simply raising friends. We are raising, as you actually described it, Stels, to some extent, foot soldiers, ambassadors, advocates, people who can actually speak in a smart and up-to-date way about the institution itself, can be proud of it, but can also demystify the myths. A lot of what we have to do is to tell the rest of the world that this is what Oxford is about, not what you're reading or what you're sort of assuming that the press is feeding you or that your neighbor is telling you. But we're really helping people understand the importance of this institution as a galvanizer in the world. We can change the world. I don't mean to sound too sort of overwhelming about it, but I really do feel that this is an important moment, sort of an inflection point when it comes to alumni relations. Now, not everybody is going to be out there doing this flag raising or, sort of, if you will, Bible thumping when it comes to alumni engagement. But I do think we all have a voice in some fashion. And whether it's to help a person, say, who would never consider applying to the university, that this could be a place for you, it's worth looking at, or whether we can help them understand the importance of the botanic gardens in today's understanding of horticulture, or whether it's, the power of the classics or something. I think there's something for us to say on many different levels, and alumni are the best people to do so. And we're frankly very lucky to have this extraordinary network of people. Interestingly, coming from the US, I did not go to Harvard, but I worked at Harvard for 32 years. And I feel as if I've sort of drunk the Kool-Aid and I should be part of the community. But in America, we look at our institutions as ones that actually do sort of represent us, and we represent them. There's a real, almost like we've got microchips embedded in our necks or something like that. But there's a really strong loyalty, a really strong sense of wanting to give back and support the institution. And it's not simply financially, it's not simply because we want you to write a check, but American universities are really good at empowering alumni to do things that help inspire students to apply, help inspire the alumni community to help each other as mentors, or to help the students as mentors, help to hire the graduates, help to sort of define the brand of the institution out there in the world. And I think slowly, English universities are beginning to understand this and beginning to sort of come on board with that idea. It's a tough one, and I don't want to sort of over commercialize it or make it sound as if it becomes too contractual, because it isn't. But I would hope that the students who have experiences here, thanks to your freshers events, for instance, they're getting introduced to the St. Anne's Alumni Society right as they're starting, and they're beginning to understand the power of that community, to support them throughout their lives, because that is what these alumni communities do, is they serve as a touch point throughout people's lives. So one of the things the pandemic did for us was it really sort of straightened us up and gave us almost a new purpose. Suddenly we were taking care of each other in a way we never did before. And I find it very moving when I understand and have talked to some of my colleagues about the ways in which they approached the pandemic, where they were I think it was Somerville, was literally on the phone with every alumna over a certain age to find out, are you okay? Do you have a support mechanism? Is there anything we can do to help you? And it was an extraordinary sort of realization of the power, again, of that alumni community, not simply to give back to the institution, but to take care of each other and create a sort of a web or a network or a framework whereby the community is even stronger. So The other thing the pandemic did was it forced us to embrace digital. So we were deeply embedded in the 18th century up until 18 months ago. We were clinging to the way we always did things, and we were quite proud of that. So I was hard pressed to know how to sort of, if you will, pivot. And that's my least favorite word these days. But we did it, and we did it. And this is testimony to the staff, such as Edwin, Jason, Jay, to take people who didn't have the skill set, but to embrace a whole new way of working and do so without slipping a stitch, without missing a trick. And this was remarkable. So we moved from being an in-person, on, face-to-face sort of institution into being a very agile and very comfortable with technology type of institution that frankly has made my job and those of our alumni relations colleagues in the colleges, I think, so much more exciting. First of all, I'm meeting and touching a lot more people than I ever did before. I was simply constrained by geography and by my ability to get to places or for people to get to me. And suddenly, with our very first Meeting Minds virtual experience, I think we had something like 7,000 people register for that experience. Back in the day, we'd be lucky if we could get 500 people to come back to a program, or here we would get about 1,200, but still, that just was a game changer for us. And we've got to figure out a way to embrace it and to continue to reinforce that going forward. Digital isn't going away. We are going to be focusing on certainly getting back where it makes sense to do so in person, but also embrace and empower the digital side of our shop to do more. The other thing about in person, and I think this is something we're all going to need to take advantage of, or not take advantage of, but take notice of, is the whole issue of sustainability. So we used to get on a plane and fly we were in Singapore, we were in Tokyo, we were in Hong Kong. I would fly all over the world over the course of the year, and without much thinking about that. And we would, at our big alumni events in different countries, we would convene the entire university. So we had the chancellor, the vice chancellor, the principal, the heads of all of the colleges, the development officers from the colleges, maybe 100 Oxford staff would convene in this event where we brought alumni together in a local international city. I don't think that optically is saying a good thing to the world about our commitment to sustainability. And therefore, I think we're going to have to think hard about making tough decisions. Where do we go that has the most strategic impact? How do we do it in a rhythm of, equal opportunity for different parts of the world? How do we do it in a way that people feel as if we're not forgetting them, but we are simply being a bit more sort of mindful of our role as citizens of this global community. So I think that is another big challenge for us. Branches. I want to talk about branches because it was so interesting to hear you talk about the challenges that branches are finding. You talked about the Northeast and the Northeast folding and simply not having Northwest. Sorry, those of you from the Northeast, but the Northwest, because we've had the same problem with our branches. So we have 180 branches around the world that are these sort of, agnostic Oxford and Cambridge or Oxford groups. And we have a very hard time in the Northeast and West in getting alumni traction. But I think branches in general are going to need to rethink themselves because as we've described it, and I think maybe it was you, Judith, who said that, branches, there's, memberships is hard to find. And that's because I think we're not presenting the right reason why people should join a branch, or we're not perceived as being relevant. I think that's right. And that's going to be important. And that relevance is up to us to decide. And maybe it's in consultation with our local members to understand, well, what is relevance to you? What would make you join a group? If you think about it, we're competing against everything else. We're not alone in the world asking for your attention or your support. I'm being bombarded constantly with join this, join that, come to this talk, come to that talk. So what is it that makes us different? And what is it that actually speaks to, and this is where it gets challenging on the data side, the different segments of our communities? Because what is good for somebody who's 65 years old is not going to appeal to somebody who's 32, who's juggling, multiple children and a career and all of this. We know that our alumni engagement is fairly strong in the first 5 years because young people graduating are looking for a job and they just want to plug in and get somebody help me. So there's a strength of commitment there. But pretty much after those 5 to 7 years, it completely drops off. And we don't see people who are 30 years old or 35 years old because they're struggling with the family and the new career. Maybe they're entrepreneurial and they're starting a new business, or so they don't come back up again until they're 45. And then we see them start to show up when they've got discretionary time and they're able to participate. So what is it that we can do for that particular demographic that is going to be more helpful or more engaging for them? So I think we're going to have to think much in a more nuanced way about what it is that we offer alumni and why. What's the hook? I think a really big issue for us as an institution is this idea that students are graduating, explaining the value of that network. And it goes back to this idea of, we are here for you. We're home base for life. We are a place where you come to find the answers to your questions. You find solutions to your problems. You find the next job. You find board members for your company. You find people to help understand your child's behavioral issues. You name it, this is the place where you can come. And that's where we have to start, I think, repositioning the institution in terms of being a relevant institution, not irrelevant. So I just want to end from the standpoint of what this year has been like, or these 18 months. So in addition to the pandemic and everything, just think for a moment of how Oxford has risen in the standings of this world, how the name Oxford is now standing alongside some of the great solutions that have been found for other diseases, and to be proud of that. This is an extraordinary moment. This is a time when the university has never enjoyed better standing in the world, and you're all representative of that. You are all carrying that brand and that opportunity to speak to that, and that's wonderful. I could not be more proud to be working for this institution at this moment. And I look at Louise Richardson and I think, wow, you didn't sign up for this when you agreed to be vice chancellor, but this is pretty fabulous. You know, it's challenging and it's hard, and it's, you know, trying to keep every plate spinning that you can imagine on every level. But wow, what a time to be here. And it's so wonderful. So I think it falls to us, all of us, to really work hard to keep an eye on constant improvement, on constantly sort of challenging ourselves, but reinforcing that role that community has to play. And we're so lucky to be doing so with such great professionals among us in terms of the staff and the researchers, the academics, the leadership of this place. It's just an extraordinary time. So I think I'll stop there. I'm very happy to answer any questions, but let me also just thank you. Thank you very much for being here, caring enough about St. Anne's to do what you do and supporting it. It is so important. And we're all very grateful.